Hi, all of you wonderful scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diver Magazine podcast, where I break down the latest scuba diving news and things that have piqued my interest over the week. This week on the podcast, the underwater photography world is mourning the loss of one of the greats who literally wrote the book on underwater photography. The family of a 13-year-old diver who was lost at sea is suing the resort over their death, and a diver has died taking part in a lake cleanup, but reports are unclear on his actual qualifications. So the first news story is that Martin Edge has passed away, and the underwater world is in mourning after hearing of his passing, because he was a globally renowned and respected underwater photographer. His close friend and colleague Alex Mustard has devoted his most recent column in the pages of Scuba Diver magazine to Martin, quoting this: for almost 20 years through his columns in Sport Diver, more than a quarter of a century through 5 editions of his book, and for almost 40 years through his workshops and one-on-one courses, Martin helped the world take sharper, clearer, cleaner, more colourful, and above all, more compelling underwater photographs. Most of the world never sees the wonders of the ocean for themselves, and our pictures are their window. The more eye-catching our shots, the more engaged the world is with the wonders of the sea and protecting the ocean. Martin made this happen. Throughout our community, almost everyone will have a well-thumbed edition of Martin's book, The Underwater Photographer, and will have benefited from Martin's insights. Indeed, Martin's ideas and explanations have become so much a part of underwater photography that they are repeated in almost every article written on this topic as simply the way it is done. Martin joined the police force aged 19 in 1974. In 76, he married Sylvia, and in 77, they moved with work to Dorset. It's here that he got his first taste of scuba diving. Quoting, "These were the days before widespread diving certification. We just went in and I loved it. I was just hooked, and Sylv and I joined a local dive club." So it's always sad when you see a name that you recognise in the news, and it's to mark their passing. If you look him up, you'll probably recognise some of the shots that he's taken. They've been literally all over the place, and there is an actual book that he wrote about underwater photography. So yeah, very sad news to see that pop up on my news feed. The next news story is a negligence lawsuit has been brought against a Malaysian diving resort and 2 of its employees in connection with the death in 2022 of a 13-year-old diver. Along with his father, their instructor, and another guest, he was left adrift in the South China Sea after becoming separated from their dive boat. It was 4 days before the survivors were located after drifting towards Indonesian waters. The lawsuit includes a number of concerning details, such as that after the incident, the family were asked by the resort to pay the equivalent of nearly £6,000 for the rescue boat, and that the boy's mother had been asked to check her husband and son out of their chalet whilst they were still missing at sea. There had also allegedly been unnecessary delays in reporting that the divers were missing on both of the boat skipper and the resort manager. The plaintiffs, who are the boys' parents, are now seeking the equivalent of £66,000 plus interest in damages. 3 months after the incident, the resort pleaded guilty to a Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency charge of operating a dive boat without an adequate crew, and was given a 5,000 ringgit fine, which is equivalent to about £830. Local police say that they have investigated, but that their missing person case in relation to the 13-year-old diver remains open. The civil action is being brought against the private limited company Winter Snow, trading as Sea Gypsies Village Resort on Cebu Islands, and individually cited are resort manager Richard Wills and boat skipper Camille bin MD Kasim. As well as the resort, Wills managed its dive centre Dan's Nasty Frogmen. Kasim had only recently been employed by the resort to drive its passenger and dive boats. To be heard at the High Court of Malaya, the court claims that the resort breached its duty of care, resulting in the death of Nathan Chester's physical and psychological injuries to his father, Adrian, and psychological injuries to the boy's mother, Andrea, who had also been staying at the resort with her daughter. Adrian is a British national and general manager of Shell Petroleum in Kuala Lumpur. He and his wife live in Malaysia, where Nathan was born. Like his mother, the teenager was a Dutch citizen. His father had paid in advance for Nathan himself to take the resort's PADI Advanced Open Water course. They arrived on Siwu Island on the 2nd of April, ready to train over the 4 days from the 4th to the 7th of April. On the 6th of April, the two joined resort diving instructor Christine Grodem, Frues from Norway, and French guest Alexia Molina, and headed out on the dive boat with Kasim for an initial dive before moving on to a second site. At around 11:40 a.m., the instructor took the Chesters with Molina as Adrian's buddy for a dive to a maximum depth of 17 meters. Strong currents required them to ascend after only 11 minutes, but the instructor told Kasim to transfer to a different location whilst the divers hung onto a line from the boat. They reached the new site at around 12:10 p.m. and dived again, this time to around 21 meters for 23 minutes, but again they were forced to surface because of what were described as very strong currents. At this point, the boat was some 500 meters away, and although they could see Kasim clearly, they were unable to attract his attention as they drifted further away out of sight. The instructor left the other 3 divers and tried to swim to a nearby island for help, but was defeated by the current. Found drifting in a weakened state the following morning, the instructor was picked up by the crew of an Indonesian boat. The other 3 divers had tied themselves together with a rope to avoid separation, but they were unsuccessful in their attempts to signal any passing boats. Late on the 8th of April, Adrian Chesters realised that his son had passed, thought to have been the result of severe dehydration, hunger, and extreme exhaustion. He held onto the body throughout the night before finally falling asleep himself, later waking to find that his son had drifted away, and his body has never been found since. On April the 9th, Chesters and Molina drifted onto a fish farm, and its owner rang the Sea Gypsies resort, which sent a hired boat from Singapore to pick them up and take them to a nearby hospital. According to the lawsuit, Chesters was later charged by the resort for the services of this rescue boat. The resort has claimed to have been vicariously liable for its employees' alleged failures and to have failed in its own statutory duty to manage a diving course and accompanying boat transport. It's also said to have failed to provide safety equipment or facilities for divers to set out in PADI guidelines, such as a housed VHF radio or GPS tracking systems. The resort is also alleged to have failed to supply other reasonable safety equipment to each diver or to provide a skipper trained and experienced for the tasks related to their training program. Neither Wills nor Kasim had been trained in emergency management, according to the suit, and official weather and sea current warnings had been ignored. Sea Gypsies was said to have been conducting diving activities at odds with its official registration status and lacked the required insurance cover. Wills is accused of failing to ensure that the boat crew was trained, healthy, competent, and sufficient in number, and of failure to comply with statutory obligations in offering and conducting the course. Because, if the man in charge of the boat isn't looking and trying to keep an eye on where the divers are by following their bubbles, then that's the fundamentals. You need to have a understanding of where they are in the water, so that you can at least keep an eye out. And if you do lose track of them, then at least keep your eyes around for any divers in the water. According to the suit, he had not ensured that the boat was equipped with communication and tracking devices. He had not briefed Kasim on the dive sites to be used, had not ensured that the skipper had sufficient training and experience in handling divers or in emergency management, and that he could communicate with divers in English or that he had carried adequate safety equipment. Wills is also said to have failed to notify the authorities of the incident within a reasonable time, instead instructing a third party to make the emergency call, which is said to not have been made until more than 2 hours later. Kasim had not held the necessary boat driving license or handled a passenger boat before, and is said to have been careless in keeping track of the divers, which is obvious. He had failed to carry equipment that could have been used to track them, either underwater or on the surface, says the plaintiffs, and had not ensured that the dive location was correct and safe, and he had failed to inform Wills of the situation sufficiently quickly. Kasim had also been operating under the influence of drugs. Police at the time reported that he had tested positive for methamphetamine and charged him accordingly, fining him 2,000 ringgits, which is about £330 for that offence. So the story just gets worse. Nathan Chesters was said to have experienced extreme trauma and pain before his death, being lost at sea, whilst his farmer had aggravated sunburn, dehydration and exhaustion, as well as continuing trauma and anxiety that made it difficult for him to sleep and required psychiatric treatment because, of course. Andrea is claiming for the nervous shock of being told by Wills that Adrian and Nathan were missing at sea, but then she says receiving no subsequent updates from the resort. She also says that whilst the father and son were missing, Sea Gypsies had asked her to check them out of their chalet. She's also claiming for the untold physical and mental sufferings of her son over the 3 days while suffering from hunger, thirst, dehydration, and extreme sunburn. The plaintiffs were looking to recover costs of 395,300 ringgits, which is about £66,000 in special damages as well as interest. Their legal team, which is Azlina A. Aziz and Co. of Kuala Lumpur, say that the family's main objective is to highlight shortcomings and persuade Malaysia's Ministry of Tourism to clarify regulations and guidelines for safe diving in their country's waters. Immediately after the fatal incident, a number of Malaysian dive professionals had called for a diving regulatory body to be introduced by the government. Both Wills and Kasim are still understood to work for Sea Gypsies. Training agency Paddy conducted an investigation following the incident, as a result of which it suspended the dive operation for 3 months and required staff retraining, including in emergency management. The resort is since understood to have purchased GPS tracking systems and housed VHF radios for use by divers. The negligent lawsuit is delivered and acknowledged by the defendants on the 24th of April, but according to the plaintiffs' lawyers, they did not respond within the required timeframe, claiming to be in continuing discussions with the insurer. An initial review of the case has been set for the 13th of June. Winter Snow Sea Gypsies Village Resort has not responded to DiverNet's request for a comment on the lawsuit. So yeah, just one of these perfect storms of just poor management and crew, by the sounds of it, that's allegedly, I have to say, just had no idea. Just because you know how to operate a boat doesn't mean that you know how to operate a dive boat, and yeah, it potentially led to the death of this family's son, and yeah, the father has to live with that for the rest of his life. And then the resort has the gall to basically ask the mother, whilst her husband and son are lost at sea, to like, oh, could you just like pack up all of their things because we need the chalet. Yeah, no, that's not right. In Minnesota, an unusual diving death has occurred with the case of 20-year-old US student Joe Anderson, who was starting a summer holiday job clearing weed and litter from Lake Lavon, which is a recreational lake in the town of Apple Valley. Anderson, who's a student at nearby Bethel University, had been training to use scuba equipment to collect debris from the lake bed, according to his family, but his qualification level, if any, is unclear, as is whether any surface cover was provided. So the flooded gravel pit had been turned into a fishing lake, though anglers are said to be deterred by its profuse weed growth. So on the morning of the 21st of May, Anderson undertook what relatives described as one of his first ever scuba dives with co-workers, including friends, in the lake in an area which is only about 8 meters deep, but still. Doesn't matter how deep it is. If he's unfamiliar with the equipment, if he's untrained, then yeah, it's dangerous. Following a group surface check and having given the OK sign, Anderson descended with the other divers. The rest of the group resurfaced, quote, shortly afterwards as planned, but when Anderson's absence was noted by the other divers, they redescended to locate him. One of them found him at the bottom, quote, after a few minutes, with his regulator second stage out of his mouth and lifted him to the surface where CPR was applied. Emergency services arrived quickly to find that although Anderson was not breathing, he did retain a faint pulse. Paramedics did get his heart beating and reported that he appeared to be suffering from severe hypothermia. He was stabilized, moved to an intensive care unit at a nearby hospital, and later transferred to another unit, but he had only low blood oxygen levels, sporadic brain activities, and fluid in his lungs, which his family describes as not lake water, but probably a result of the trauma from the accident. He later passed away on the 24th of May. No problem was reported to have been found with Anderson's dive equipment. It was all functioning normally. Minnesota Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, is investigating the incident. So a lot of questions thrown up by this. The main one is the qualification. There's a lot of like vague statements, and a lot of it seems to be coming from the families, who themselves may not be like fully like qualified and know kind of what they're talking about as far as qualifications and scuba diving activities. So just because they're saying these things doesn't necessarily mean that that's accurate. They may not know exactly sort of like what qualifications he held, if any. Finding him on the bottom with his second stage out of his mouth, a lot of things could have happened. It could be, it's hard to speculate because there's not much to go on. But yeah, like weed clearing and litter picking in that kind of environment can be quite tough, and especially if you're unqualified, I wouldn't recommend anybody to do it, especially without like sort of surface cover or going like by yourself, because yeah, even 8 meters, a lot can happen in 8 meters. It's not just decompression that can get you. There's a lot of other things, and in this kind of areas, especially if there's like fishing like going on in the area. I know they haven't fished there for a while, but if the fishermen are annoyed that there's a lot of weeds, what that usually means is that their hooks get caught up in things, and the only way to free it is to just cut their line. So there's going to be a lot of fishing line down there, a lot of fishing hooks, a lot of entanglements issues. So a very unsuspecting but actually quite dangerous environment. So yeah, I want to be like as qualified as possible to dive in those kind of locations, and it's not something that someone who's only done like a handful of dives, if any, should be partaking in. So OSHA's looking into it, and we'll see what they can find, if anything. On some lighter news, because it has been quite a heavy news week, we actually commented on it behind the scenes. We have a Slack chat where we talk about the latest news here at Scuba Diver Magazine, and we actually commented on like, wow, that it's quite a grim week. Sort of like what's happened. But Meridian Adventure Dive announced their latest collaboration with Dive with Buddy. So they say that they're thrilled to announce their latest collaboration with Dive with Buddy, affectionately known as Buddy. Dive with Buddy is a diving community and mobile application, which is designed to discover like daily dive related content. It's kind of like, it's a bit like Facebook, but for scuba divers, like specifically for divers, to connect with other divers in the area, find new local dive spots, and with this partnership, they're extending a warm invitation to dive into an unparalleled digital diving adventure, all from the convenience of your home or local dive center. So yeah, it's an app. I'll pop a link to the website down in the description under the video, and yeah, you can kind of explore. You can see what everyone else is doing because you can post images and videos and things, and find like local dive sites. You can log your dives on the app and use that, and other people can see it. And then yeah, you can like find other divers in the area who want to go diving and get together, make new buddy pairs and whatnot. So yeah, just check it out. There'll be a link down in the description below, but if you search for divewithbuddy.com, you should be able to find it. Moving on to product news, Sport Diver, or Sea Life, I should say, have released a new Ultra smartphone housing for their Sport Diver like phone case. They had the regular one, the Sea Life Sport Diver like smartphone housing, but it was fairly limited as to what smartphones it actually fit. So now there's the Ultra version for $350 looking here, and it allows you to like use your phone to take photos and videos underwater down to 130 feet or 40 meters. So recreational levels, but still, most people don't appreciate nowadays how good the cameras on your phone actually is. So if you're bringing it with you, granted, you got to like leak test it and do all that, but yeah, you've got a very, very good camera sort of with it. And they actually have a like compatibility chart, because it's not specifically for like the newest iPhone or the newest Samsung or whatever. They have these little inserts that allow you to fit a lot of different phone models, because phones come in so many different sizes nowadays. You get the compact one, and then you get the XL version. Yeah, I actually checked, and yeah, my phone definitely fits. And that's an Android, so definitely worth sort of checking out. I mean, iPhone 8 through the iPhone 15 Pro Max, Samsung Galaxy S9 and up, and Samsung Galaxy S9 and up, most other Android phones, including the Galaxy S Ultra models, the Google Pixel and the Pixel Pro. So lots of phones. They say underwater housing fits phones up to 18.3 centimeters by 8 by 1.2 centimeters in size. And yeah, it comes with those little like inserts if your phone's a little bit smaller. It has an internal moisture sensor and an internal vacuum pressure alarm, so it alerts the diver with on-screen warnings, audio and LED signal in the unlikely event that the waterproof seal is compromised. Removable red underwater color correction filters, so you can add the red filter if you so wish, or you can just do it in post or add some lighting, because there is a lighting system, or what you call it, like a combo. You can get just the phone case by itself, or you can get the phone case with a little tray and a video light to really bring those reds back into your photos and videos. And yeah, I've always trusted Sea Life. Touchwood, they are very reliable. Otherwise, Shearwater have announced a firmware update for the Terek dive computer with an Avelo mode. So, Avelo, if you've never heard of it, it's a new groundbreaking system of that kind of like replaces your cylinder and your BCD at the same time, and creates a constantly neutral buoyant system. It's a lightweight alternative to traditional scuba gear, and it's centered around its hydro tank. They call it the hydro tank and jetpack. So unlike conventional BCDs that you inflate and deflate to adjust your buoyancy, the hydro tank uses water to manage buoyancy, which significantly reduces the weight that divers need to carry around out of the water, and it enhances underwater maneuverability. And they claim it's an experience akin to flying underwater, providing divers with an unparalleled buoyancy control and increased safety. When the pump on the jetpack is used, you kind of like push a button, the pressure in the hydro tank increases. So at the bottom of the cylinder is a separate section. And I think when I first read about it, they said it's similar to a submarine's like buoyancy system, and the jetpack with the hydro tank. Yeah, you push this button and it like readjusts your buoyancy, so you're neutrally buoyant throughout the entire dive. And then when you reach the surface, you press another button and it makes you positively buoyant. So it's unusual to like a traditional diver or a traditional BCD setup, but hey, it's clever and it's new. And they've paired up with Shearwater and the Terek specifically to when you have a transmitter fitted, it can provide a much more accurate view of the breathing gas remaining, as well as your buoyancy. It gives you an actual figure to your buoyancy, whether you're positive or negatively buoyant. They say the combined system provides precise data on surface air consumption, your SAC, and percentage of breathing gas remaining, crucial for understanding neutral buoyancy, managing workload, and improving efficiency. This leads to longer dives and more bottom time, enriching the overall diving experience. Shearwater Research is committed to pushing the boundaries of diving technology, quote, partnering with Avilo aligns with our mission to deliver powerful, simple, and reliable diving solutions. We are inspired by innovators like Aviad Kahana and his Avilo Labs teams, who share our vision to push the boundaries of human potential underwater. That was a quote from Jason Leggett, the CEO of Shearwater Research. And Aviad from Avilo Labs said, we are ecstatic to collaborate on the Avilo mode with renowned dive computer brand like Shearwater. This partnership allows us to bring our revolutionary buoyancy control technology to a broader audience, enhancing the dive experience for all. The Avilo mode will be available in connection with the next firmware release for the Terek dive computer on the 17th of June. After installing the new firmware, the Avilo mode will then be available by purchasing the Avilo mode unlock code, which will cost you $99 from your Shearwater authorized dealer. So unlike most of the firmware upgrades on Shearwater computers, which are completely free, by unlocking, or you basically have to unlock this new mode, and you have to pay for that. But you don't have to if you're not diving the Avilo system. You don't have to have it, but yeah, if you already own a Terek and you're shifting over to an Avilo system, then yeah, it's an additional upgrade that you can choose. Otherwise, last week I spoke about the Atomic Aquatics B2X regulator. Last week I could only find it on scuba.com, but this week it's actually been announced by the brand. So it looks like scuba.com went a little bit early with that release. But yeah, and it has all of the same information that I found on scuba.com. But now, of course, it's on Atomic Aquatic website. Yeah, it's an upgraded version of the B2 regulator. So if you're interested, check it out and find your local Atomic Aquatics dealer. Otherwise, I still got some time for some Ask Mark questions. Migsy Caton asks, on the subject of first stages, I have my transmitter at the end of a very short MeFlex hose like everyone else. My BCD is an X-Deep one like the one in the video, the X-Deep Zen, and someone suggested that the transmitter would be much better placed at the end of a longer hose tucked in away between the plate and the wing. Not only the transmitter would be protected, but it would also boost its communication with the computer as it would potentially be closer to it. Do you think this is a good idea? Yeah, I can see it like swinging around a bit more. So you'd have to secure it in place. if you put it on a long hose. The reason most divers put it on a short hose is, one, so that it's not used as a grab handle, and two, it's not very flexible if it's knocked. Most divers put it on like a 6-inch or 15-centimeter hose, so it's got a bit of flexibility. But when you put it on a longer hose, it's on the end of a whip, basically, so that's going to swing around. So when you're kitting up, you got to be careful not to like bash it around the same way you look after your gauges or your second stage. You don't want that to like swing and crack against the cylinder or whatever. When you're in the water, you need a way to secure it in place, which can be as simple as like a bolt snap. You attach a bolt snap to the hose, and then you clip that to a section of the back plate. The NX is skeletonized, as I call it, so it's got lots of holes running through it, so that way you can attach it to that. But yeah, there is an argument for bringing it a bit close to the dive computer, but if you're diving singles, it's unusual to get that much interference or loss of signal, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Can you do it? Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Would I do it? No, but I have no objections to someone else do it. They had a second question, which is about washing dry suits. My dry suit is a basic fourth element Hydra. It's a neoprene dry suit, and I wonder if it's okay to wash it fully. By fully, I mean to fully immerse it in water in the bathtub so the inside and the outside will get clean. Yeah, dry suits are waterproof on the inside and the out. The one thing I'll say is it'll take forever to dry out on the inside unless you help it, and you don't want any moisture like in your boots, because that's where mold and like bacteria and stuff is going to thrive. Even if you hang it upside down by the boots to dry, you need to get some airflow up into those boots. What a lot of divers do is they get some PVC piping for like guttering, and you can build a little like drying rack with 2 vertical posts, and then they go up the legs, and then you have an opening up at the very top where the feet are, and then from the bottom you just blow some warm air through the piping, and that just helps to get that airflow and get the moisture out. You can get like dedicated hangers, like Hang Air, and they have a fan and a motor built into the actual hanger itself, and that helps to get some airflow to the inside. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with, and it's actually quite good to clean the inside of your dry suit from time to time. But yeah, it's drying it, which is the pain. So yeah, just be prepared for that. It is going to take a while. Otherwise, today is the day. The Diving Into the Darkness premiere is open now on the 9th. There's going to be a link down to down in the description below to the website where you can view it. We're holding a digital screening for this week only of the Diving Into the Darkness documentary with Jill Heinarth. It's an awesome documentary. We've done a review on it because we got an early copy that you can check out on our website. But if you want to view it, you can head over to the website. Yeah, as I say, it's going to be linked down in the description, and yeah, it is definitely worth checking out. And yeah, you can view it at your leisure as many times as you want this week. But you only have from today until the 15th of June to watch it. Otherwise, we're having a screening at the Australia and New Zealand Go Diving Show in September. Yeah, click on the link down in the description below. Otherwise, head over to our website, scubadivingmag.com. Check out the awesome things that we do over there. Thank you for listening, everybody. And of course, safe diving.